Will somebody tell me if we're supposed to start the program?
Freeman hits the ball to right field.
Into right field. She is gone.
Oh, what a pass. Doncic, perfection there on the assist. A little magic from Doncic.
Stafford takes the shoulder, takes a shot downfield. It is caught by Nakua. He pinned him on his shoulder and made the catch.
One of a kind player. One of a kind season. Shohei Ohtani starts the 50-50 club.
Tipped up and in on the count. LeBron James at the buzzer.
This game's in the Admiral refrigerator. The door is closed, the lights out. Butter's getting hard, the eggs are cooling, and the jello is jiggling.
All right, guys. A very, very special guest here on the LA Sports Roundup podcast. Todd Leitz, public address announcer for the Los Angeles Dodgers, is on. Todd, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, man. Thanks again for coming on. You're a big time name in the sports world, and like I was just telling you right before we started, rolling here. It's we're just trying to get this, get the LA Sports Roundup podcast going, LA Some Up Sports Media going, and having people like yourself on. It's a really big honor.
Well, it's an honor to be here, my friend.
Thank you. So yeah, I just want to get this podcast started with people getting to know who you are, but also, what are your, where did you grow up, and what are some of your early sports memories growing up as a kid?
Well, I grew up in New England. I grew up in the Boston area, and I was there till I was about 12. And, Boston has a real strong sports culture. They call it the hub. Bruins, Celtics, Patriots, Red Sox.
Yeah.
When I was growing up in the 70s, the Celtics were pretty awesome. The Red Sox were always trying to get by the Yankees, and the Patriots were just horrible. The Bruins were great, and they were fun to watch with Bobby Orr and Derek Sanderson and Terry O'Reilly and a lot of the great classic Phil Esposito classic Bruin players. It was a real strong sports culture, and I was a jock. I grew up playing football, baseball, from a very early age. I think my mom got tired of my brother and I hanging around the house, and she said, "You guys are going to go play football."
Right.
So she threw us out on a field with, these fake toy helmets.
Yeah.
The coach said, "Man, you can't play with that helmet." But I was 8 years old, and I really took to it and loved it very much. And baseball was always a passion. Football was always a passion. And so my earliest sports memories were really playing.
Yeah, nice. I always think that sports brings families together. As for me, I grew up, 35 years old, so I grew up right in the early part of the Shaq and Kobe Lakers era. I started watching the Dodgers when I was about 10 years old during Sean Green and those guys. Right after Mike Piazza left. And so, but I feel like, sports always brings people together, whether it's just your brothers, your dad, your mom, your grandma. It's an important thing for families to gather around the TV and watching games and going outside and playing basketball, playing baseball, playing football as well. It's just one of those things that just always brings people together.
Yeah, for me, it was my brother. We were very close in age, so we were competitive. We would face off, on the, playing wiffle ball and whatnot. And the funny thing is that my sports fan person in my family was my mom. She loved baseball, so we would stay up late watching Red Sox games. I remember watching the 1975 World Series with my mom and just falling in love with baseball and the Red Sox and the whole drama and pageantry of the whole thing. So my first time to Fenway Park was I was 9 years old, so it was 1972. And it was just, that first trip to a major league ballpark, you're just like, wow. And, this was Fenway Park, which was a pretty old park at that point,
Right.
As well. So it was pretty special. And I'll really never forget that first look of the green grass of the baseball field as you walk through the concourse and everything, and the smells and the sounds. Being at a ballpark is a happy place for me.
Absolutely. Dodger Stadium being such an iconic stadium, but also Fenway Park. I've never been there myself, but I can only imagine what it's like in the springtime, opening week and just like I guess, for lack of a better term, I guess the pageantry around like just like the simplicity of it, I guess.
Yeah. Even growing up back east, though, we watched the Dodgers a lot because they in the '70s they were always right there against the Yankees, and we hated the Yankees, so we're like, we want the Dodgers to beat the Yankees in the World Series. And so I got to know those teams really well. And when we played wiffle ball, my brother and I was the Red Sox. I knew every guy in the lineup, and I did all the play-by-play as we were playing. And he
Nice.
was the Dodgers. He was Garvey, Say, Lopes, and so forth, and Bill
Yeah.
Russell. So the Dodgers were always kind of right there. And so when I came out here, it was very easy for me to become a Dodger fan because I've been here for 40 years. I've been here since 1985 in Los Angeles. And it was very easy for me to become a Dodger fan because of the beauty of the ballpark. I loved the symmetry of it after, growing up with Fenway, but seeing, Dodger Stadium is symmetrical all the way around, all the, 330 down the line,
Mhm.
375 out in right center, left center. Um, so I just love Dodger Stadium and would go there a lot. In fact, I did a lot of different jobs at Dodger Stadium
Oh wow.
before I became the PA announcer. I was an EMT there
Oh
for a
wow.
while. You see those EMTs in the concourses and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
I used to do EMT standbys back in '09, in 2010, 2009, 2010. Um, and sang the anthem there like a dozen times
Wow.
from say 24 20 geez, it must have been 2011 to 2014, twice a season.
Mm.
Even some big games like Mother's Day and Father's Day, they would have me come out and sing, and on Friday night fireworks nights and stuff. So I was a pretty regular anthem singer there. And then I got this job, so it was like maybe it was meant to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I find that really, really interesting that you worked many different jobs at Dodger Stadium before transitioning into what your career is.
Yeah,
You
I guess I shouldn't say many, but I had a few
couple. Yeah.
things that I did there, and
Yeah.
the anthem was kind of the kind of a big deal for me, and um, but being an EMT there and helping people who got in fights or got too drunk or
Right.
got hit by a foul ball or something like
Oh
that was
yeah.
always an
Yeah.
interesting thing.
Yeah.
And I never really had any serious incidents at Dodger Stadium as an EMT, but it was a way for me to see it behind the scenes
Yeah.
that a lot of fans don't get to see where the
Right.
medical area is and where everybody comes in to go to work and so forth. So
Yeah.
that kind of got me behind the scenes at Dodger Stadium early.
Absolutely. What were some of your inspirations into getting into broadcasting?
Well, I was a radio guy for 20 years in this town in LA. I worked for KNX 1070 News Radio, and several other radio stations. I was a news guy, and I was a street reporter and a news anchor. So I would go out and cover stories. I would do the anchor of the news in studio. Um, but what inspired me to do that, I'm not really sure. My wife and I got married back in 1988. We traveled around the world, and we quit our jobs and dropped everything and just
Wow.
left for 8 months, almost a year. And lying on a beach in Fiji or something, talking about what we wanted to do with our lives going
Yeah.
forward. We knew we wanted to have a family. We knew LA was home and was what we were going to do. So I kind of, had done acting work in Los Angeles. I had some pretty good success, made some money, had some fun, but it wasn't really something I don't know. I was a political science major in college, and so I was very politically minded and international relations. And after traveling around the world and seeing the world, it just seemed like journalism seemed like a good call for me. So I
Yeah.
figured broadcast journalism would be a good thing. And I didn't really think of anything but actually the journalism part of it. I didn't think of, oh, I'm going to be on TV or I'm going
Yeah.
to be on the radio. I thought of just mainly writing. And that's how I broke into broadcasting was as a writer. And then my news director one day came and he said, "Kid, you got some amazing pipes. You ever thought about being on the air?" And I'm like, "Sure,
Yeah.
let's do it." And they put me on the air, and I guess the rest is history. So I never really, never really thought about that. Certainly never thought about being a PA announcer for a baseball team or anybody else. But
Right.
it just kind of happened that way. And that's the way life is. You might start on one path, take a few steps down what you think is your path, and
Yeah.
then it might branch off into something completely different that you didn't realize. But if you stay open to it and stay
Yeah.
ready, you can get somewhere.
That's definitely a great lesson for, I guess, anybody going through anything in life, right? Trying to figure out their way, and just being open to opportunities. I think that's an amazing lesson right there.
Yeah, and be willing to start, at the bottom.
Right.
I went to work for a radio station called KFWB, which was a big news station in Los Angeles at the time. And I was what they called an editorial assistant, which meant a gopher basically. So I would, do whatever. And I was getting paid like, I don't know, $6 an hour or something crazy like that. And but I didn't care. I was in the mix, and I fell in love with the immediacy and the visceral feeling of live radio, and when stories would break, and how it was so real, and it wasn't a bunch of bull like I felt acting was sometimes, was seemed just a bunch of pretend. But
Yeah.
this was real, so I liked that.
Yeah. I was going to ask, well, you said your supervisor or your boss discovered that you had a good voice. When did you discover that your voice could lead you into being on TV and being on the radio?
Well, I didn't really think of it that way early. I guess I realized pretty young. I remember when we first moved to California. I was in eighth grade, and I first couple days of school, I was the new kid in school, and this was up in Northern Cal, and they were taking attendance, and they said, Todd Leitz, and I'm like, here, and all the girls started to giggle, and I thought, oh, they're making fun of me because I'm the new kid and stuff. But what I came to realize was that all the boys back then had these high voices. They hadn't quite changed yet, but mine was mine was low, and it was
Yeah.
different. Said, well, I guess my voice is a little different, and I kind of liked the way it made the girls
Yeah.
giggle. It's like, all right, well,
There you
hey,
go.
how you
Yeah.
doing?
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's when I kind of realized it was different. And then when I was in high school, I was a jock. I was a football player, I was a baseball player, I ran track. I didn't really think of that. And then one of my teachers said, "Hey, you've got a really, he called it presence." He says, "Would you ever be interested in going out for any plays or musicals? Do And I said, "Well, I'd try it,
Yeah.
and I found out that I really loved it. I had something,
Yeah.
and he recognized it, and that's when I kind of realized, maybe I can use my voice for a career. Maybe it's not just using my body as an athlete. It's more
Mhm.
like using the whole package, I guess."
Yeah.
And so that's kind of when I realized, when I was in high school, and then I continued to do stage acting, started to take singing more seriously, and really loved it and enjoyed it. And that kind of was the end of my athletic career after high school. I played sports I've been playing on the same fast pitch softball team for 35 years. So I still play sports, but it wasn't something I thought that I grew up thinking I was going to be the next USC tailback. I thought that I'd be, and that dream was within reach for a while,
Yeah.
but it's, how it goes. You just
Exactly.
maybe you stop growing and whatnot. But
Right.
I think I've found my niche.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think your voice is very comparable to Lawrence Tanner's.
I've
You know,
heard
like,
that, and I
yeah.
know Lawrence, and he's an amazing PA announcer and a wonderful guy. In fact, funny thing is I used to be on the radio with Lawrence. He used to
Oh wow.
be the program director for a jazz station
Oh wow.
in Santa Monica, and I was his news guy. So it was and that's how I first met him. And I didn't even realize he was the Laker PA announcer,
Oh wow.
because I
Yeah.
didn't even think about PA announcers back then. I thought of play-by-play guys, Vin
Right.
Scully, Chick Hearn, and so forth. But
Right.
I wasn't really aware of PA announcers. I don't think until I started singing the national anthem at various ballparks, and I would go talk to these guys before the performance, and then they would introduce me, and I'm like, oh
Mhm.
wow, that's an interesting job up there to be the
Yeah,
voice of the stadium. You know,
exactly.
I did the national anthem at Fenway Park. I did it at Angel Stadium, did it at Dodger Stadium, sang it up in San Francisco at I guess it was AT&T Park back then, or I don't know if it had become Oracle yet. Sang for the Lakers a couple times.
Oh wow.
Um, so you know, that's when I kind of first became aware of PA announcers, but I haven't
Mm.
really thought about them before that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's such an interesting job. My mom always calls it like when she, like I would always I grew up having like the Laker games on the radio, and she'd be like, God is speaking when she heard him in the back.
Yeah. That's why they
Uh,
call it the voice of God. You know,
right.
so for my in my case, it's voice of Todd, and
There you go.
you know, not that I have delusions of grandeur, but it's
Yeah,
just a catchy thing. The voice of Todd
exactly.
Almighty is my website and so forth. In fact, I think that's how you found me.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
On your email. Well, through your Instagram as well. Um, so how did you work your way up to eventually landing landing with the Dodgers?
Well, as I said, I was a radio guy, so I was kind of a known quantity in this town, and I sang the national anthem at the Dodger Stadium, you know, at least a dozen times over the years. So maybe I was a known quantity to them. But they had a PA announcer. His name was Eric Smith, and he was
Hmm.
there for 13 seasons. In fact, next year I'll finally have caught up to him because this is
Oh
my
wow.
12th season. Next year will be
Yeah.
my 13th, God willing. Um, but um, so I can't say that I worked my way up to being that. I did audition for the San Diego Padres in
Mm,
2014, and it was kind of a open call, social media type of thing that they
mm.
did, and it was an audition process over the series of like a couple months. Started in like late January and didn't
Wow.
end until like the third or fourth game of the season, like
Yeah.
almost you know, into April. And so I kept getting, you know, I kept going back because either I got enough votes that they kept me around or they liked me. And it went from thousands to 100 to 50 to 25 to
Wow.
10 to 3. And they announced the guy who got the job, Alex Miniak, who's currently their PA announcer. He's been there since 2014.
Mm,
And so at that point, I knew I could do the job. And I
yeah.
really thought I had the job. I really
Wow.
did. And they told me that, you know, it was like this between you two guys. It was,
Wow.
um, and so I was, you know, bummed. I didn't know how I
Yeah.
was going to make it work since I lived like in Los Angeles, but I went through the process and I called several games, including part of opening night against the Dodgers one
Oh
night. And I
wow.
remember being in the Petco Park commissary and talking to Charlie Snyder and Rick Monday, who
Yeah.
were down there to call the game, and saying hello to Vinny. Um, and so that was a really cool moment because I was like,
Wow.
here's my team, the Dodgers, coming
Yeah.
down. And I said, "Hey guys, I'm going to be calling part of the game. I'd love to hear what you think."
Yeah.
Um, and so I did enough of it to know I could do this job. And then I didn't get the job, and then I was bummed. But the next season, I heard the Dodgers might need a fill-in, and so I called them and said, "Hey, I'm your guy. I you know I tried out for the Padres. I know what I'm doing." And they asked me to come in for a tryout one day for the college baseball classic,
Wow.
a doubleheader, USC, UCLA, and then the top two teams from the College World Series. And they basically gave me the job on the spot. I mean,
Oh
it
wow.
wasn't that simple, but they
Yeah.
basically said, you know, Lon Rosen came up into the booth after hearing me do the lineups and said,
Yeah.
"We're going to need you for the Freeway Series."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Wow, okay."
Yeah.
And so as much as I put into the Padre
Yeah.
effort, the Dodgers thing kind of just dropped in my lap. And I guess
Yeah.
that's the way life works sometimes.
Oh, definitely. I feel like, you know, some things kind of just start meant to happen, and you're meant to be here with the Dodgers. You know, it's kind of crazy to think if you did get that job with the Padres, you know, how your career would look right now.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm sure it's a great job, and they're a great group of people down there. It's a beautiful stadium. The fans love the Padres. Um, but I'm very happy that I did not get that job.
Yeah,
Put
absolutely.
it
And it
that
probably
way.
feels a little good for us to beat them.
It always does. It always does. Mostly because of the, you know, the tension between the teams
Right.
and the trash talking that goes on. It's like, you know,
Right.
let's put them in their place. We're the Dodgers. We're the big
Right.
brother.
Exactly.
But I don't try. It's funny. I'm a fan, obviously. But I also work in the industry, so I try to give, plenty of respect
Oh,
to
absolutely.
anybody that works in baseball,
Right.
any of the opposing players, as long as they're not douchebags or something, which most of them are not.
Right.
So I try not to get involved in that tit for tat fan thing that goes
Right.
back and forth because I kind of figure that I'm not technically a fan in
Right.
some ways. I'm
Absolutely.
part of the team, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. What is some of your game day prep?
I like to get to the stadium early, like 3 or 4 hours before the game, before all the fans show up and it gets so crowded down there.
Right.
I like to, fill out my scorebook, and, go over, the opposing team. Middle of the season, you get to know a lot of these guys. You get to know the umpires, you get to know who they are and so forth.
Right.
But early in the season, there's so many new faces, new names, new players. I like to sit down with it a little bit, do my research. Because, like I said, I have a lot of respect for guys that make the major leagues, and I want to give even the opposing team a measure of respect. I'll give the Dodgers a lot more of my energy and exuberance,
Right.
but I like to give the other team, they're major leaguers. So I always say, hey, let's welcome the visiting Padres.
Yeah.
It's not like, and here are the Padres,
Padres, yeah.
So that's part of my routine. It's become somewhat, I'm superstitious like a lot of baseball people. So I fill out my scorebook in the same way.
Oh, wow.
I do silly things like I draw the team's logo in the,
Yeah.
up in the corner of the books.
That's interesting.
Just weird stuff like that. I mean,
Yeah.
geez, in fact, one of my books is right in front of me. I'll
Oh,
just open up a random page,
oh, this is exclusive content we're seeing here.
see who we're playing. This was a game against the Pirates,
Oh my gosh. Look
and
at that.
so
It looks like my high school folder, the way I would just like etch the
yeah,
team
you
logos.
doodle on it and stuff, and
Yeah.
so but everything in here it gives me information for the game. Obviously I keep score, and it looks like
Amazing.
the Dodgers scored a bunch of runs in the ninth
Yeah.
inning to win it,
Wow.
uh,
So
or the eighth inning, and
you're
so.
handwriting everything in there.
Yeah, yeah. I
Pretty
don't.
cool.
I had to tell myself early on, you're not the scorekeeper.
Yeah.
You're not the official scorekeeper. You don't need to count balls and strikes.
Right.
You don't need to say, the put out was 7-4-3-2-1 or whatever it
Yeah.
is, on a rundown or something like that. Just get the information in there. And, it when I did a podcast back in 23, I did 45 episodes of my own Dodger podcast,
Oh,
and I
wow.
did them all
Yeah.
post game. And it was a lot of work because I did it all myself, all the production, all the
Yeah.
editing, all the everything. And it was after games, so I was kind of tired,
That's exhausting.
And so I was always at the ballpark until 1 o'clock in the morning and stuff, and then whatever. So, but it was a fun process, and just being able to look at my scorebook, I could just tell the whole story of the game,
Yeah.
just by reading my scorebook. And that's what I did. My podcast was called Dodgers Homestand, and it was, a bird's eye view of Dodger baseball, from somebody who's at every Dodger game at Dodger Stadium.
Wow.
And so I would do, what we did in the pregame, who sang the anthem, who threw out a first pitch, any other special, if it was a special Filipino Heritage Night or something like that, then
Yeah.
I'd talk about the game a little bit, and then I do an interview with like the head groundskeeper at Dodger Stadium or somebody like that would give you like an inside
That's
view of
amazing.
what kind
Yeah.
of grass they grew. And
Yeah.
the podcast did pretty well, but I couldn't really monetize it, and or I wasn't able to monetize it in the time that I had. And it was a lot of work that it wasn't returning much on my investment. So
Right. It's a labor of love.
yeah, it's a labor of love. And I'm sure
Yeah.
that's
I
what
mean,
you're going through too.
there's not any I don't work in sports. I don't, I have a full-time uh career in mental health. I work for the Department of Mental Health in LA County. And so doing all of this is extra, and it's a labor of love, and it's something that I've always wanted to fulfill working in sports since I was a little kid, and no better way than to create your own thing. But it comes with the price to be able to have to to do all of this.
Yeah. But that's
Yeah.
a great lesson for any young people that want to get into something that they want to do. You just got to find a way to do it. You
Right.
know, if you want to be a singer, you got to sing. You
Yeah.
have to. You can't say, "Oh, well, I really want to be a singer." Well, you got to sing. Find a way to
Right.
sing.
Exactly.
Find a way to do that thing that you think you want to do. And you
Right.
might find out that maybe that's not what you wanted to do,
Right.
but
Yeah.
it's close, you know.
Exactly.
So, you're taking your passion for sports and specifically wrestling, and I assume boxing as well, and other LA sports, and just and diving in. And so I applaud you for doing that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, it's something that I've always wanted to do since I was a little kid. I would be in my driveway listening to Chick Hearn and listening to 570 radio when they had the Lakers on. They still have the Dodgers on, just in my backyard, just shooting hoops. And it's something I always wanted to mimic and to become. Life takes you different ways, right? But if you can fulfill it in some type of way where it's something that is fulfilling for you, then you got to do it.
Right.
You
But
have to
hey,
get
let's be clear. Working in mental health is a very, very important thing. And
yeah,
so many people these days, they want to become influencers, or they want to be,
right.
I want to be a movie star, or I want to
Yeah,
be, there's something to be said for like real serious professions that really help people and help our society. So, sports is a wonderful thing, and I use the ballpark as kind of a sanctuary away from, some of the troubles of the world. Baseball is kind of has its own rhythm and its own,
yeah,
and so, it's almost an escape, but the real world is out there, and we need good people to be doing the hard jobs like
right.
mental health and stuff.
It's not
Um,
easy. Yeah.
yeah, my daughter's a clinician, and
Okay.
she works with people with addictions and so forth, and I
Yeah.
know what the work she's doing is very important.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, every day is different, when we go out into the community, we assess. And it's a very, it's not meant for everybody, in terms of just dealing with different personalities. And sometimes it can be a little dangerous in terms of like you don't know what people have on them, but at the same time, you're there because you care. You're there because you want to make a difference. Because you could be doing anything else in the world and probably getting paid more. But if it's something that you feel like is fulfilling for you, then it's not about the money. It's not about all those other excess things.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's admirable.
Thank you. So the team is considered to be in the golden age of Dodger baseball currently. Are there any major differences from when you started with the team to what it is now?
Well, the expectations are grand right now, and the Dodgers are meeting them, and they have met them. When I first started, the Dodgers were really they were climbing the hill, and
Yeah.
they were trying to break through finally after, 30 something years of not being in the World Series. And so when I started in 2015, Don Mattingly was the manager. Um, there's nobody that was on that team that is still on that team.
Right.
And I always find that interesting is that, Dieter Ruhl, the great organist for the Dodgers, told me, he says, Todd, these players are going to come and go, but you and I are going to be here for, and it kind of put our
Wow.
role in perspective. Not that we think that we're any whatever, but it just let you know that, hey, the players will change, but there are certain things that can become fixtures, like Vin Scully, Jaime Jarrín,
Right.
fixtures that transcend generations. Players have their moment in the sun. Clayton
Right.
Kershaw seems like there's never been a time when we didn't have a Clayton Kershaw,
Right. Yeah.
but his time has now not passed, but his
Yeah.
time as a Dodger player is over. And he was the last guy that was there when I first got there. And now,
Yeah.
so um, you're right, though. This is the golden age of Dodger baseball. This is a wonderful time to be a Dodger fan. Um, and for those who suffered through some of the
Yeah.
leaner
Yeah.
years where you didn't understand why they did what they did, and that the stadium wasn't as nice a place to go to.
Yeah.
Um, so as far as my particular role in that, I feel a sense of like like accomplishment. And I always felt like we were fighting for respect.
Yeah.
And we weren't getting it. And we finally won a World Series in 2020, and everybody said, "Ah, it doesn't count.
Right.
It doesn't mean anything." And so the having the 2024 World Series championship was so gratifying because it was like, all right, now nobody can say anything about
Hmm.
us.
Yeah.
And then now with the back-to-back, it's
Yeah.
a feeling of, okay, we've arrived. We are the team.
Yeah.
Um, and it also is wonderful to have such a wonderful group of people, not just players, not just coaches, but people that are huge parts of this organization. And it's one of the reasons that they're successful is because they're good people to begin with. They could have gotten Manny Machado, they could have gotten Tatis, they could have gotten Bryce
Right.
Harper or Juan Soto.
Yeah.
But they said, you know what, those guys aren't the right fit for us.
Right.
Uh, we're gonna hold off, and we're gonna bring in people like Mookie and Freddie,
Yeah.
and Miguel Rojas.
Just good character guys.
Good character guys. Besides the guys that, like Will Smith and other guys that
Yeah.
came up through their minor system. But they don't just spend money on performance and talent. They spend it on good human beings, and that shows in the clubhouse.
Right.
Shohei could be the biggest tool that you'd ever want to meet, but he is
Right.
probably one of the coolest guys you'll ever want to meet.
Right.
Um,
Exactly.
and he's otherworldly, but he's also just a real guy that's a great teammate and a fun person to be around. And not that I really know from firsthand knowledge of what it's like to hang out with Shohei, but I observe him a lot, and I
Yeah.
see I see the players in situations that the most fans don't see because
Right.
they're doing their private workouts and whatnot. And so I
Yeah.
see all that effort
Yeah.
pregame, and that's all part of my pregame ritual too, is to kind of keep an eye on, all right, who's out there taking grounders at third? Okay, that means we're probably facing a lefty tonight, and so Kike's going to start or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Um, so um, it's the fact that we are in the golden age, the fact that we're back-to-back world champs, it kind of just takes a lot of the, I don't know, the angst out of it. It's like, hey, whatever happens, I trust these guys,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we didn't always have that. We always kind of wondered when the other shoe was going to drop, or when
Right.
the hitting would dry up like it did in 2023 and
Yeah.
2022.
Certainly rubbed some lean years there, man. I mean, we don't need to discuss what happened in 2017, 2018. Those are some tough times. And then, losing in
But
20,
they were also exciting times. Those
they
teams
were,
were
yeah, they
amazing,
were.
and it was really hard to see them climb to the very almost to the summit of the mountain and then fall off, and so yeah, so it's like we were always just kind of getting there, and
Yeah.
finally we're there, and
Yeah.
it's a wonderful feeling.
Yeah, I actually did a, docu-series starting up this this publication called Almost a Dynasty, the LA Dodgers. So just kind of just going year by year how we would just get there, but then it would just fall off. Like losing to the Cubs in 2015, I think, in 2016, and then like the Astros, the Red Sox, the Diamondbacks, like all those, like just it was like heartbreaking losses, but also, yeah, like you said, it was also like such a great team as well.
Yeah. Well, just think about it. When I started in 2015, we lost in the division to the Mets. They went to the
Yeah,
World Series.
yeah,
2016, we lost in the championship game, championship series to the Cubs. They went to the
yeah,
World Series, obviously, and won it. In 17, we went to the series and lost the series in Game 7. 18, we went to the series and we lost to the Red Sox. 19, we lost to the Washington Nationals in the division series. Probably
right.
the biggest gut
That
punch
was
that I ever
that was the
experienced.
one that where I because I think that was the year we won like was that the year we won like 100 and some like games in that regular season?
They had a great year that year. It wasn't the 111
Okay.
win season that we
Yeah,
had a couple years ago, but it was a great season, and there's no way that they should have lost to the Washington Nationals. But that just proved that you get hot. You get hot, and things work out for you. And then when Howie Kendrick hit that grand slam off of Clayton Kershaw, I
yeah,
almost puked.
yeah,
I could not believe what I was seeing. And then in 2020, it was the shortened season. We were so thankful to and we got to the World Series and actually climbed the mountain. When we beat San Diego in that short,
yeah,
series. I knew that we probably were going to win the World Series
Yeah.
at that point because I didn't think anybody else had the juice that we had. 21, it was neck and neck with the Giants. We won 106 games. They
Right.
won
Yeah.
107.
Yeah.
And then we lost the Braves, who won the World
Braves.
Series that year.
Right.
And then in 2022, the
That one.
Padres.
That one was the most heartbreaking for me.
I think for a lot of fans, watching the Padres beat up on us like that, yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
And they didn't make it to the World Series. They got close, but they didn't make it. But then the Diamondbacks the next year, they went to the World Series. So whoever beats the Dodgers has gotten to the
Right.
promised land. And so
Right.
I always felt like we were just so close. And we
Right.
finally have been able to get over the hump. And I had my doubts in both 24 and 25 that the team had the juice to do it, watching them
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
day. But um, there was something different about last year in the sense that they just said, you know what, we don't care if we win 100 games or 92 games, as long as we get
Right.
into the dance
That's all that
and
matters.
in a position where we're feeling good. And
Yeah.
that's what they did. They had their pitching lined up, they had everybody healthy. And that's a juggernaut when that happens. And of course, the X factor, of course, is Otani
Right.
and his contributions. So Golden Age, oh yeah. And it really doesn't change the way I do my job. It changes the way people perceive it, I suppose, and the attention and excitement around the Dodgers, which is really fun. That's been a really fun thing for me to experience because I think, in past years, people, oh yeah, the Dodgers, they're always there, but they always lose. They always blow it at the end.
Yeah. Doesn't
And
hurt.
now nobody can say that.
Right. Absolutely. It seems like, our back-to-back World Series championships has just made up for a decade of heartbreak. It's kind of crazy to think about. But the Dodgers have clinched the World Series twice on the road now. Where did you watch these games?
Oh, I always watch them at home because I can't when you go to a Super Bowl party and you barely
Yeah.
watch the game because you're socializing, you're eating,
Yeah.
whatever you're doing. I need to sit there and watch the game in the same place. My wife is kind of gets a little anxious around baseball, especially Dodger baseball, so she can barely watch. So a lot of times I'm sitting there myself. Uh,
Yeah.
and uh and so, people have asked me, "Hey, come over. We're having a party." No, I gotta watch alone. Oh, I get it. I
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah.
So yeah, so both times I was watching at home, and I really look forward to the day when we can celebrate a World Series championship
That'd be
on the
amazing.
field at Dodger Stadium.
Yeah. Well, it could happen this year.
It could happen this year. And last year and the year before we had some cool, fun celebrations on the field at Dodger Stadium after clinching
Yeah.
series, like when we clinched the Padres series, and then when we overcame the Mets all at home.
Yeah.
So, those were all great. Those were all fantastic, but it wasn't a World Series championship. And
Yeah.
I've watched a couple teams, three teams to be exact,
Oh,
celebrate
yeah.
World Series championships on our field, and that
That
was
was
not
yeah.
fun.
That's not fun at all.
Not
Yeah, I,
fun.
I can't imagine having to broadcast that, you're the World Series champion, Houston Astros. Like that's your responsibility to do that, even though you're a fan, at heart.
Yeah, in 2020, get this, since it was all in the bubble,
Right.
um, Dodger Stadium and Petco Park were the two West Coast venues for playoff baseball.
Mm,
And
yeah.
so we hosted a division series between the Astros and the A's.
Oh
And the
wow.
Astros prevailed, and I think it was in 5 games. But one game was an A's home game, and one game was an Astros home game, and I was supposed to be like a homer for the
Yeah.
home team, and not so much for the visitors. And so there was a couple of games where I had to be a homer
Oh
for
man.
the Astros, and that was one of the hardest things
Ooh,
I had to do. I
wow.
was like, you know what, I'm not going to go overboard for these guys. You got to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
kidding me.
Exactly.
It was still the same guys, still, several of the suspects from
Right.
2017.
Yeah.
But you know what? In the end, when they won a couple years, was it 22 they won
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
with Dusty Baker? I was actually okay. I can now
Yeah.
live and let live. And they're obviously a good baseball team to have the sustained excellence that they've had over the years. So I can let it go
Right.
finally. And
Yeah.
having the Dodgers win a few world championships since then
Right.
helps a lot.
Exactly. Just don't put any trash cans in front of Dodger fans. You know, they get a little PTSD around there.
Oh man, I'll never forget when the Astros first came back to Dodger Stadium after
Oh,
that 17 World Series, and the fans
yeah.
just let them have it.
Yes.
And it was brutal. And I had to play the role of don't be throwing things on the field, fans, and please, don't interfere with it, and boo. And I was
Yeah.
like, they're booing me, but I realized that I'm not booing me. They're booing anybody telling them that they can't, beat up on the Astros a little bit. So, um, there's been moments like that. I remember when the playoffs when Jurickson Profar was antagonizing the Dodger fans. Was it 2 years ago?
Mm.
Um, Remember when he went into the
Yeah.
stands and made the
Yeah.
catch on
Yeah.
Mookie's
Yep.
would be homer?
Yeah.
And then the next night, the fans were just letting him have it. And I had to
Right.
admonish the fans that they could
Oh,
get kicked out, and it was really I hated to have to do
yeah.
that, but at the same time, I don't want to see any
Right.
major league players get hurt by stupidity and things like that. But you got to let the fans express themselves. That they they
A little
they
bit.
pay their money. They
Yeah.
they they
Yeah.
fight their way into Dodger Stadium,
Right.
and you got to let them express themselves. So
Exactly.
there's
As long
there's
as
a
it's all
fine line.
respectful.
Yeah, right, right.
Right. So one last question here. What keeps you busy in the off season, and would you consider doing any other sports?
I have considered doing other sports, but it was made very clear to me when I took over the Dodger job that they wanted somebody who could be there all the time. They didn't want to have like rotating announcers. So it was very important to me to be at every game. And I've only missed 6 games in 12
Oh wow.
seasons. And a few of those were for my daughter's college graduations. And a couple of years ago, I left for 3 days, missed a Colorado series in the middle of May or something, to go to Fiji with my wife for our anniversary. And nobody really knew that I was going away, so everybody thought, is he dead? Did he get fired? Where's Todd? What happened? And the fans were going nuts, and I
Yeah.
didn't even see it until like a week into our trip in Fiji, and then I was able to get some cell service or whatever, and looked at Twitter, and I was like, oh my God. Uh,
Yeah.
but I always said, hey man, they can't miss you if you don't go anywhere. If you're always there, people can take you for granted. So,
Right.
um, it was nice to feel like the fans missed me a little bit. But I have considered, when the Rams job came
Okay.
open,
Yeah.
when they came back to town, I thought about it because I love football. I grew up playing football. I know the game very well. But then I realized, there's going to be games going on in September and October when the Dodgers are right in the heat of of,
Right.
of everything. And
Right.
one thing I've learned from being in the Dodgers for 12 seasons, I can't plan anything in October because we're always there. We're
Right.
always we're always in the mix. So,
Yeah.
um, I've thought about it. It would be cool to give basketball or football a try. Um, but it's not something I'm dying to do. And baseball is a lot. It's with the
Yeah.
Dodgers, it's 90 games a year.
The longest season.
Yeah. And that's a lot of games, and that's a lot of time away from
Yeah.
your family, and
Yeah.
a lot so yeah, I could see doing it,
Yeah.
but I also have a voiceover business, and I do a lot of radio imaging work,
Hmm.
which is basically, 94.5 KLOS,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff that you hear on the radio. And I do stations all over the country. In fact, all over the world. And commercials, and so I kind of keep my hand in acting that way with voice acting and voiceover work.
Oh wow.
So
Yeah.
that's what I do in the off season, and I also try to take some time off. I have a place up in Montana, and my wife and I go up there for a month or so,
Yeah.
and we just kind of unplug a little bit, and that's really been helpful to me to get out of LA for a little while, to
Yeah.
slow it down a little bit, and kind of be reflective. But I still work when I'm up there, and um, so that's kind of what keeps me busy. And I'm a grandfather now, and
Oh wow.
so
Yeah.
I got a little grandson and
Yeah.
another baby girl on the way.
Wow.
So that's
Congrats.
really fun. That's a blessing.
Yeah. Congratulations for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well,
So
yeah.
yeah, I try to stay busy. I kind of consider myself in my early 60s now, kind of semi-retired. I feel like okay, I don't have to hustle as much as I used to because I really, when you're in morning drive, news radio, it's a demanding life. You're
Yeah.
up at 3 in the morning every day.
Wow.
You're out, God knows where at a murder scene or a fire or
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff. And I hustled like that for 20 years. And so I'm enjoying, working out of my house, working. I got a home studio here.
Yeah.
Um, and then going to the ballpark
Yeah.
90 nights a year and for
Yeah.
some exciting Dodger baseball. So I kind of feel like it's a pretty good lifestyle at this point.
That's good. Probably the only thing that's chaotic is the traffic going to Dodger Stadium.
It can be, but it helps to go, early.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky that I can, some people are coming from another job or something like that, but I work my schedule so that on game days, I try to keep it easy, make sure I'm well rested. Because, being a PA announcer it's a physical job. You
Sure.
might not
Yeah.
think of it as that, but there's a lot of energy you got to put out there. And it's a lot of concentration and energy, and it's taxing. I realize that I'm not a young spring chicken anymore, and I have to protect my energy levels. So
Yeah.
that's all part of maintaining the long season. Just like for the players, it's a marathon. It is for us who work in production and work behind the scenes at Dodger Stadium as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Todd, I want to thank you again for coming on. Appreciate it. This was a great interview. And yeah, I really appreciate you coming on, and hopefully in the future we can do this again.
Yeah, let's stay in touch, and I thank you for asking me on. I always appreciate when people reach out to me, and I've kind of made a pact with myself is that when people ask me to do things that are related to Dodger baseball, or I always say yes.
No,
So
it's awesome.
within reason.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, we appreciate it. So thank you again.
All right, lace them up sports. Let's go.
Let's go. Thanks.